Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Here we are at the end of another week. Can you believe it? December the 17th of 2021. So here we find ourselves. Good morning, Sarah. You are first out of the gate. I guess it always helps maybe when you're back in time a little bit in regards to time zone. But you have always been faithful and very quick to get in there and say hello. So good morning to you. Thank you for your good morning. And as people log in here over the next couple of minutes, it'll be great to interact with some of you. And many people will hopefully see this video throughout the day and even in the coming days ahead. There's Scott. Merry Christmas to you, Scott. Thanks for popping in there and saying hello. You're very early. It's very early in the morning for you. And I think I saw on Facebook that you're moving. So prayed for you about that. I know the feeling of hating moves. I am with you there, big fella. But great to see you. Thanks for popping in and saying hello, and a very Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. We are going to be reading in Matthew chapter 5 today, and then we're going to go back to Ruth. But I have always promised to try and at least make you smile, laugh, or groan, I guess, or a combination of all of those things. So let's see if I have found any that might do that for you. I did find a bunch of cheesy. Um, Let me just get. Here we go. Let's see what I've got here. Um, what happened to the man who stole an advent calendar? Well, he got 25 days. Who delivers presents to baby sharks at Christmas? Well, Santa Jaws. Okay. I know these are bad. Okay, what do they sing at a snowman's birthday party? Freeze a jolly good fellow. Let me see here. What kind of motorcycle does Santa ride? A Holly Davidson. All right. What did Santa do when he went? No, that's not. I'm reading the wrong one here. What do you got here? Oh, what do you get if you cross Santa Claus with a duck? A Christmas quacker. um, Here, this one makes me laugh. What goes? Oh, oh, oh. Well, that's Santa walking backwards. Get it? Ho, ho, ho. Oh, oh, oh. This one, the guys will like, girls will probably think it's gross. Why was the snowman looking through the carrots? He was picking his nose. Let me see here. What else can I get? Some of these I've used. I'm going through to make sure I don't say ones I've already said. There was one back here if I could find it. Where's that original one that I saw? Oh, yes. Who was Santa's favorite singer? Elvis Presley. Let me see. What do you get if you eat Christmas decorations? Tinselitis. And what's green, covered in tinsel, and goes ribbit, ribbit? Why, it's a missile toad. Oh, man, these are bad. What carol is heard in the desert? Oh, camel, ye faithful. And what do reindeers hang on their Christmas trees? Well, ornaments. All right, I got to quit while I'm ahead. Some of these are really, really bad. All right, so Scott, where do you find these? Well, that's my little secret. I'm going to keep that as my secret. But let's say Google is a wonderful friend if you know how to use it. So, but anyway, I'm glad a few of you laughed. Some of these are just groaners, but you know what? I'm thankful for laughter, and I'm thankful for emotions and reprieves because I mean, let's be honest. Here we are. It's a Friday, and I know, the world has that expression. Thank God it's Friday. And yet, it is hard to do these every day and not acknowledge the world that we live in. We are dealing with things like COVID still, and now Omicron or Omicron, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And there's a lot of fear. I've got a very dear friend, actually, he's my best friend, is quarantined in a hotel somewhere in Montreal. Finally got to speak to him. I've got missionary friends that have finally made it to Newfoundland that had to go through this. None of it is a pleasant experience. And literally, guys, I can't express to you, they're really, really like they're being held in prison. I mean, how our government thinks this is appropriate or right is beyond me. I just have to tell you. Um, and yet, my friend and I had a great time to just laugh and try to make light of the situation and stuff like that. But it does break my heart when you see it. And then, another province in Quebec has now joined the ranks of requiring churches to have the vaccine passport and all these things. And listen, I get it. I understand there are opposing views on this. I get it that there are people, Christian people, good Christian people. Hear my heart when I say this, on both sides of this issue. I get it. What breaks my heart is that all this stuff creates tension because there's no winners. I just want you to own that. No matter what position you fall to, there are no winners, because it's not just holding to your position, but how we hold to our position that matters for those of us that are Christians. Are we still going to be led by the fruit of the Spirit? Are we still going to show the character of Christ, who, even though Peter tells us when he was reviled, he reviled not again. Jesus Christ came to live the life that you and I can't live, which is he suffered betrayal, abandonment. He was second guessed, falsely accused, and yet he was constantly calm, in control of his emotions. He didn't return evil for evil. He didn't do the tit for tat thing. He didn't hold grudges. He bore up under all kinds of extreme circumstances. And I can tell you right now, with the way I'm feeling, with the sense of burden and heaviness, just all of the demands on the time, the constant pivoting and changing in direction. Guys, I'd be lying to you. I'd be absolutely lying to you if I didn't say I'm here this morning and I just feel it. I'm a part of multiple social media groups, and I listen to pastors pour out their hearts of the burdens they bear, adjusting and reacting to all of these seeming random decisions. And when I say that, please hear me say that I don't think pastors are the only one living this. They're not. Every single one of you is living this. People that work in theaters or at stadiums or at car dealerships live this, not to mention our frontline workers, not to mention the constant demands on our nurses and our doctors and our lab technicians and everybody that works in that. Everything is tense. Everything is just overwhelmingly tough and demanding and hard. And every one of us is tempted to just snap. And so let me see if I can help you with this as well as we walk through this together, because in Matthew chapter 5, beginning in verse 21, Jesus has been preaching what we call the Sermon on the Mount. It's this discipleship session. It's a small group Bible study of Jesus with his disciples. But because Jesus is powerful and he's come and he's healing everybody, these great crowds, he is famous from Galilee to the Decapolis, from Jerusalem to Judea and beyond the Jordan. So crowds of hundreds or even thousands are all there, and they're listening to Jesus speak to his disciples. And he's given them this ninefold blessing as the way to introduce this. And then from there, he talks about them being salt and light. And then he gives them this assurance that because he's come to fulfill the law, every aspect of it, not just obey it perfectly, but obey it perfectly and motivationally. That's what's amazing to me, is that that's what he's there to do. It's just a beautiful, beautiful picture of God. And so because of that, Jesus tells his disciples, you don't have to demean the law, as in dismiss it, make excuses, don't think it means anything or any of that kind of stuff, but rather you can also not feel like I got to live up to the law. I've got to kind of accomplish it. I've got to keep it, because then he gives you this impossible standard. Remember, he says, unless your righteousness exceeds that of the scribes and Pharisees, you're never going to enter the kingdom of heaven. So he says, he gives them this double whammy warning, as we saw yesterday. If you relax one of these laws, you miss the boat. And if you think you can keep them, no, you got to keep them and exceed them. And so you were supposed to be left with, well, what am I supposed to do? Because in our lives today, every one of you out there, like me, are left with either I'm going to make excuses for why I can't, and then you can't hold me accountable for it. You can't blame me for it. Or you're going to be filled with pride and arrogance and a sense of superiority because you think you have arrived. I do keep this. Very few of you out there would think you're perfect. I don't think I've ever met anybody who really and honestly thinks they're perfect. But I have been guilty of, and I have met people who think I am not the best, but I am definitely not the worst. And we do this thing called comparative righteousness, and we do it a lot. So almost Jesus, seeing how this could happen, now he's going to start dealing with all of the biggies that you and I deal with. And there's not one of them here that you and I can get away from. And he's going to start this pattern that we're going to see over and over again over the next 2 weeks, where he says, you have heard it was said, and then, but I say to you now. So he's going to constantly do this. And every single time he's going to show you how you can't relax it and you've got to exceed it. So every single thing he deals with, every one of us has got to come to one conclusion. Oh, snap, I'm guilty. Oh, snap, I'm guilty. Oh, snap, I'm guilty. All right, let's see if you can see it with me. So in Matthew chapter 5, verse 21, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. So, right, every one of us likely, I'm not going to make a massive assumption because I don't know who will see this video. I don't know where this video might go. But for the most part, I don't know that any one of us would watch this and go, well, I'm guilty of murdering somebody, like actually literally murdering someone. So we have heard it. It's one of the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not murder. Okay. So we can instantly go, maybe the disciples did too. And you go, okay, well, at least I got one. But then he says, but I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother or sister, and now a chill runs up and down your spine, doesn't it? I say to you, anyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Okay. Then he goes a step further. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. Okay. So whoever's angry, whoever insults, and then he goes, and whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the hell of fire. And I don't know about you, but even as I'm reading this, and I've read these verses many, many, many times, and every single time I read them, 3 emotions come over my body. One is the natural instinct to explain this away. Well, no, I know what Jesus says, but it doesn't mean that. Jesus doesn't mean that. Well, guys, it's there in black and white. It's words. For some of you, you've got a Bible. It's there in red. It's the red letters. This is what Jesus said. And so basically he goes, you think the standard is just don't murder somebody? No, let me show you how you can't only not relax that, but let me show you what it means to exceed it. So I'm going to say it's not just that you don't murder, it's that you don't carry murderous thoughts of anger or self-righteousness or belittlement or condescension in you, because that's what it means to be angry or to insult or to say you fool. And then he connects this in verse 23. He says, so if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you. I mean, this is just crazy. So Jesus is saying, here's what you think the standard is. I'm putting the standard way up here. And so now let me make this practical for you, you disciples of mine and crowd listening. So how this means practically is when you are gone to church, when you're gone to do your religious activity and you're all putting on the Ritz and making it look like, look at me, I'm here to worship God. I'm here. I'm not perfect, but at least I'm here. I'm here to put on the trimmings. And yet, while you're sitting there, someone is angry with you. Someone is not happy with you. Jesus says, leave your gift there before the altar and go first be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hands you over to the judge and the judge to the guard and you be put in prison. Truly, I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. So, what do we do with that? Well, one, I would challenge me and I would challenge us to be brave enough to read this over and over again, because my first instinct when I read this is to make excuses. It's to demean this. It's to explain it away because this passage makes me nervous. My second emotion when I read this is like, I'm guilty of this every single day. Like, oh yeah, so I can go, I haven't murdered somebody, but man, I have murdered someone in my head. I have insulted people. I've belittled them. I have gone to church knowing full well I'm not right with everybody. Now, look, yes, I can go right to town with this and say, look, reconciliation is a two-way street. But the idea here of Jesus is saying that there is a drivenness in you and me. If you get this ninefold blessing, if you're going to be salt and light, if you're going to be abjectly humble and realize I can't belittle this law and I need to exceed it. So the only conclusion you can come to is, oh, God, help me. Because Jesus is saying, unless you are driven, passionately driven by this need to be right, and you genuinely want to be right, and if you failed someone, you want to go and make it right. You definitely, you don't want it to get to the point where it gets adjudicated, because that's not what your heart would be. You want to go right back. So just in this one area of anger, because in the disciples sitting there, in the crowd watching on, filled with scribes and Pharisees, the religious elite, you had both extremes here. People that were either ignoring the law, making excuses for the law, or you had people who thought that they were keeping it. And so in this one little section of 21 to 26 of Matthew chapter 5, I read this, and every time I read it, my emotion says, make excuses, explain it away, dumb it down, or I get this sense of anxiousness, this desperation, like, Lord, I can't do this. And then this wave of, I'm guilty, God. I'm guilty. I've done all these things. And I need you. Because I don't know how to stop doing this apart from you. I don't know, because when I read verses like this, my instinct is to think about all the people that have hurt me. I instantly want to go, yes, Lord, I've been angry and I've said nasty things about people, and I've been willing to let people sit out there and stew in their juices because I don't want to be right with them. I have had senses of self-righteousness and condescension, and the list goes on and on and on, because I'm trying to make an excuse for the fact that this proves that I'm guilty. I have been angry with people. I've been guilty of it all. And I need a savior. And when I'm tempted to start making excuses and think, God, this isn't fair, and God, where are you? And God, you don't understand. And God. Oh, now I'm back to this woman named Naomi back in Ruth 1,200 years earlier. In Ruth chapter 2, verse 17, we get back here to Ruth and Boaz and Naomi You read, so she, that's Ruth, gleaned in the field until evening. Then she beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. And she took it up and went into the city. Her mother-in-law saw that what she had gleaned. She also brought out and gave her what food she had left over after being satisfied. That was eating with Boaz at his table when she was dipping bread in wine and eating the best wine and the best of this and the best of that. and her mother-in-law said to her, where did you glean today? And where have you worked? Like, what in the world happened? Give me the 411 on this. Because then she says, blessed be the man who took notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked and said, the man's name with whom I work today is Boaz. So we've just learned that Jesus says, you have heard that you're not supposed to murder. And in case any of you out there think, well, I'm not guilty of murder. Then he says, oh, and by the way, if you're angry with someone, you're guilty of murder. If you've insulted someone to their face or behind their back, you're guilty of murder. And if you said you fool to someone, you are guilty of murder. And you should have an attitude that I don't even want to worship God if I know there's someone out there I'm not right with and I could be right with. Oh, and I am driven to be right with them. I would never, ever want to dare even risk leaving it to where that person feels they got to adjudicate it with me, because then it's lost. And so the only conclusion you can come to is guilty. And then you turn and you wonder about grace. Because here back in Ruth, this Moabite woman who is a widow, her husband is dead, her brother-in-law is dead, her father-in-law is dead. Her and her mother-in-law, Naomi, who said, call me Mara, because God's against me. They left Bethlehem in a famine. She comes back and says, I'm empty, God's against me. But Ruth has found favor in the eyes of Boaz. She's eaten at his table. He's even told his own employees, I want you dropping some of the good stuff so she can get it. She comes back at the end of the day, but I want you to notice the spotlight of the verses I read is not even on Ruth and Naomi. It's on everything that Ruth brings back with her. That ephah of grain, some people say that could be 13 kilograms. You realize there's 2.2 pounds to a kilogram. So we're talking close to 30 pounds of food she's bringing back with her. And notice it says she carries it home, and Naomi sees how much she had gathered. And then she pulls out all the stuff that was left over from that fancy gourmet meal. In other words, she left with nothing. She left with no protector. She left with no provider. Naomi thinks God's against her. And in one day, Ruth comes back with at least 30 pounds of groceries and leftovers from probably the best meal the woman has ever eaten in her entire life. In other words, the blessings of God just keep mounting. And by the way, don't miss, they left Bethlehem, the bread basket of God, because it was under famine. She comes back, Naomi does, says, I'm empty. My life's worthless. God's against me. Nobody loves me. I've aged beyond my years. And in one day, after 10 years at least of pain and suffering and doubts and questions, you see, we've learned, right, that Naomi had the right to go and glean because the law said that landowners had to leave the very fringes of their property, basically the scraps of their property, for people to go glean from. Boaz comes and says, you don't need to do that. I want you to go to the middle of the field. I want you to follow my best people. I want you to pick the best stuff in the best field, eat at my table. In one sense, the law was being kept in sense, okay, I'm going to obey the law here. This is grace. Have some grace right here. But then Boaz says, no. I'm going to bring you into the middle. I'm going to give you grace upon grace. See, grace by virtue definition means unmerited favor from an unobligated giver. In other words, when Ruth is out on the fringes, she's getting what the law requires, and Boaz can say, I'm obligated to do this. Fine, go pick through the scraps, honey. But then he says, no, you know what? I'm going to bring you into the middle of my fields. I'm going to tell my people to drop what's mine, mine by right, mine by ownership, and I'm going to give it to you. And I don't owe this to you. I'm not obligated to give this to you. I don't have to do this. I'm going to give you what you don't deserve. Out there is what you do deserve. You see that this is the grace upon grace everywhere. Boaz and Ruth are these living embodiments of the Lord's graciousness to Naomi. Don't ever think that this is about Ruth and Boaz. They are the tools, the instruments. This is about Naomi. This is about her seeing that she thinks, I've screwed up. God is ticked with me. My life's a failure. I am outside looking in now. I'm worthless. I'm nothing. Ding, ding, ding. I'm going to tell you, folks, I have felt those emotions in the last 24 hours. I really have. Worthless, nothing, underappreciated, questioning everything about my life and my existence. And this is why I love my Bible, because Naomi is seeing grace upon grace. She is seeing God's favor turned upon her. And yet the Bible never, ever does that and says, you're not allowed to have these emotions, or you're not allowed to have these questions, or you're not even allowed to have these wrong assumptions. Nor does the Bible give Naomi an excuse for her sin or her doubts. Naomi probably, in fact, I believe because she ran from Israel and ran to Moab and her boys married these all of that was against the law. She sinned. She's guilty. And because of that, she feels dirty. She feels guilty. She feels the weight of it. And she thinks God's against her. She assumes that God's just always going to screw her now because she screwed up. And the Bible never, ever divorces her from her emotions, her doubts, her questions, even her struggle to face her sin. She's basically crawled back to Israel and said, all right, Lord, do to me what you're going to do. I was going to die in Moab. I might as well die in Bethlehem. It'll be a cheaper funeral, and at least I'll be buried in my homeland. And what is God's answer? In one day, in one 24-hour period, after 10 plus years of suffering and wondering, God says, I love you. I forgive you. I've raised people up to provide for you and protect you. I'm going to insert you into the lineage of how I bring the Messiah. So now fast forward 1,200 years again to Matthew chapter 5 and this idea of anger, where you and I read Matthew 5:21 to 27 or 6, and we're both, all of us out there are tempted to go, no, that can't be what it means, because we have an instant tinge of guilt. Or we're like, who in the world can do this? I can't live up to this. Or we arrive at guilty, guilty, Lord. I can't make excuses. I can't hide my pain. I've been struggling with my anger my whole life. I've been guilty of making fun of people that are less than me so it makes me feel better. I've been guilty of looking down my nose at people that are worse than me because at least then I don't feel so bad. I'm just guilty. And the question becomes, how much do you and I value the graciousness in our life, the unmitigated grace upon grace of God? Because when you and I get to the point where we can be like, I'm just tired, Lord. I'm tired of the fight. I'm tired of my failures. I'm tired of my fears. I'm frustrated with my questions and my doubts. I'm scared that you're against me. It seems like I have nothing and nobody. I feel like I've lost my marriage, or I've lost my parents, or I've lost children, whether that's literally or figuratively. I've lost a job. I don't have the will. I'm nervous all the time. I'm not focused. I'm just overwhelmed. My body fights against me. And Jesus says, I get it. And I love you. And I will live for you, and I will die for you, and I will rise again for you, and I will forgive you, and I will save you, and I will walk you through this life, through all of its ups and downs. And I will never, ever, ever say that you can't wonder, hurt, cry out, ask questions, but bring it all to me every time. Just bring it to me, bring it to me, bring it to me. And when you and I do that, we will experience grace upon grace, and it will change us from the inside out. Well, you've been so good to me this week, so patient. Let me pray with you one last time to end this week. Love to see you this weekend if I can. And if not, I hope you will find a community and find a church to be a part of. You need it. Stay in the Word. Stay on your knees. Be honest before God. Be honest with yourself. And take some chances and be honest with others. Live in community. We all need it, especially in these days. Father God, I pray for myself. Lord, I need you. Oh, Lord, do I ever need you? Lord, I ask that you would be with the men and women that are watching this video or who will watch this video. I pray that they will understand how you are teaching us in the Sermon on the Mount, not how to make light of your holiness or to think that we can somehow attain to it, but rather how we can only be holy because you're holy. I pray that we will see the joy and the beauty in Ruth and Boaz and Naomi. I'm so thankful that a woman like Naomi exists in the Bible because I identify with her, Lord, especially on days like today. Sometimes I think my name shouldn't be Stephen, but Mara, because the Lord is against me. And yet, Lord, you are so gracious and kind and gentle and holy, and you are always for me, and you will never leave me, and you will never forsake me. Lord, lift that up in my heart, I pray. Lord, may you get all the honor and all the glory. Heal, protect, and provide. Make your presence known to the men and women that see this video. And if any have prayer requests or questions or need help, Lord, help them to cry out, oh, Lord, save me, and that you will do that in whatever means. But give us patience in the midst of our suffering, in the midst of our trials and setbacks, to know that that is not what defines us. It is true, it's what we're going through, but it doesn't own us. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you, everybody. Thank you once again for hanging out with me all week. Pray that these have been a blessing and a challenge. And Lord willing, by his grace, I will see you back here on Monday as we continue to push our way through Advent, making our way to Christmas and to Christ our Savior. Blessings.